One period in which the Soviet or Stalin's hand is the most clear is also that of the greatest failure, the early years of the CCP. During the first 6 years of its existence, the Chinese Communist Party regarded itself as the party of the working class, the new urban proletariat, of the class that, according to classical Marxism, was destined to overthrow the bourgeoisie and to establish a socialist state and eventually a communist society. Now, there were several problems with this effort. China had a very tiny proletariat and had not experienced much that one could begin to call a bourgeois revolution. But Chinese communism had another task as well, as a fighting element in the worldwide struggle against imperialism. This was a period in which every communist party was closely tied to Moscow, a Moscow that had itself just defeated Western intervention in the Russian Revolution, and a Moscow that feared what was called capitalist encirclement. The Soviet Union had begun the revolutionary process, and the rest of the world was supposed to follow its lead in what in later years would be called national liberation struggles. Thus, Chinese communism had a global role to play, as well as one in China, and one that helped to overcome or at least mask the difficulties of its own domestic situation. But there too was a connection, for in its anti-imperialist struggle, the Chinese Communist Party had to work with the Kuomintang, this allegedly bourgeois party, in driving out the imperialists and unifying China. For in Stalin's conception, and Stalin was indeed the mastermind behind the Nationalist Communist Alliance, the Kuomintang would not survive the victory. It would, he said, be squeezed like a lemon and then cast on the ash can of history, with the proletariat led by the Chinese Communist Party ultimately seizing power. That, in any event, was the theory, and in reality the strategy worked up to a point. The Communists joined an alliance with the Nationalists, formally in 1924, and benefited enormously from it. Its membership reached some 30,000 members in July 1926 and had nearly doubled by April 1927 to 58,000. But Stalin's strategy and that of the early Communist Party in China had a fatal flaw. It was tied to and it was dependent upon the nationalists during the period of this national revolution, and it had no real autonomy of its own. Above all, it had no military force of its own. And in April of 1927, Chiang Kai-shek, the nationalist leader, turned on his communist allies, who had no real defense. Thus, it was Chiang Kai-shek and not the Communist Party that squeezed the lemon first. The Communist Party and its proletarian bastion, concentrated in the very same big cities that Chiang Kai-shek now controlled, was decimated. Its remaining ranks were subject to a white terror of executions and imprisonment that would last many months. For the Chinese Communist Party and for Stalin, it was a defeat seemingly snatched from the jaws of victory. Stalin, of course, would not take the blame, and instead pointed the finger at the communist leader Chen Duxiu, who was promptly branded as a right opportunist. As the chief Soviet advisor, Borodin mused on his way back to the Soviet Union overland, over the Gobi Desert, 4 years of fighting and sacrifice on behalf of the revolution have been nullified. The revolution extends to the Yangtze. If a diver were sent down to the bottom of this yellow stream, he would rise again with an armful of shattered hopes.